right. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to try to get my picture back up there. There we go. And my background, my little medicine wheel is all blurry, but I'll fix that here in a minute. Welcome to Good Medicine Way. We're here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's 6:05 p.m. Mountain Time, and we're running pretty much on time. We always say we run on Indian time, so we start when we're ready, and then we finish when we're done. So with that, I want to say we're in the land of the Tiwa people here in Albuquerque, and there's 19 pueblos up and down the Rio Grande. We got the Apache people in our area up in Dulce, and down here towards uh, where is that? Down towards Santa or Phoenix. I'm sorry, that way. And then we have the Navajo, one of the biggest tribes in the country, with us. So I'm Potawatomi. I'm originally from Michigan. I'm transplanted down here for the last 25 years. Love it here, enjoying it, and just want to be a good host to you tonight as we welcome everybody. And we're going to turn this over right now to Eshe, who's going to do our opening prayer. And he's coming to us from South Carolina.
Yep. Yep. Muskogee, Cherokee, and Yamasee territory.
Oh,
Can you hear me? All right, cool. Yeah. Thankful to be here tonight. Thankful for you all, thankful for this community. I just wanted to kind of give something a little different. I presented this prayer once. I'm learning more about my own Kakchika Maya ways, and so today's in the Choki and the Maya ceremonial calendar, which is about this particular calendar is about the human body and about the human being. And so today is actually the first day of a brand new cycle. And every 260 days, there's a ceremonial new year for that calendar, which will be 20 days from now. 20 and 13 are very important numbers in that calendar. And it's argued to be even more accurate than the Gregorian. Um, but also applies spirituality into it instead of just like timekeeping as a construct. So it's all intertwined. Um, and then you have the that calendar, which is 260 days, and then you have the 365-day one as well, which is similar to the Gregorian. And so I just wanted to say that. And you know, there's a lot of beauty in that. And so for like today as bats, that's how you would say it, bats. One bats, or one thread. That's how you say thread. A lot of the Mayan languages, and it represents the creation, the beginning, and also the wholeness of everything. So it's the beginning of all the energies of creation, and completion. And so it's a lot of meaning there. But I just wanted to, in that spirit of oneness, I just wanted to bring that up and share that. And so I wanted to share this prayer. It's not a four directions prayer, but it is a prayer that was done by Henrietta Mann. And I think it is especially applicable to now and with everything going on, all the social upheaval and everything. I just wanted to share it and felt impressed to share it. So feel free to smudge as well if you have any medicines near you. Um, feel free to use those medicines, whatever nation you belong to, whatever medicines are applicable to your people. Feel free to use them and share them in this space. Hana Mahio, grandfather sacred above and grandmother sacred below. Creator, God, all spirit, Mahio, you who are known by many names. You, thank you for this sacred evening, for this gathering, for the celebration of achievement. Mahio, haho nahiv nia ish mahio. As the humble, upright, two-legged walkers with five fingers, Thank you for the divine, the holy that is within each of us, your four human children, from each of the four sacred directions of this good earth. Thank you for the sacred breath of life. Thank you for the power of good-heartedness and spirit-centeredness. Thank you for good minds and speech. Thank you for your great gift of sight and vision so that we can see the beauty of life and the beloved in one another. Mahio, with humility, I ask you to encircle each of us with all that is good, especially with respect, compassion, understanding, and joy. Shield all who stand here before you with the power that is love and the strength of gentleness, and their sacred commitment to educating the beloved and precious children of the sacred red earth. Fulfill their vision of recreating a strong and compassionate human community that undergirds the kinship of life. Bless all my relations who have come to this gathering so that in all of their days on earth, they will walk in beauty and with honor. My Creator, bless all my relations with grace and the ability to forgive. Comfort and wipe the tears of all those who are in sorrow. Fill their hearts and minds with serenity and hope. Guide our hearts with compassion and wise spiritual direction, so that we can think love and be love, so that we can think peace and be peace. Mahio na hana hinahane nish. And so that means Creator, let it be so. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Eshe. Very good. And I just let you know that our guest that's on there, Marianne, she's also Cheyenne. So, yeah, so she's coming to us from Santa Fe here. She's a student up there at the IAIA Art College. So with that, I want to turn it over to Brian, who's going to be doing our opening song, Come and See. And if you want to sing along with us, just remember to put yourself on mute so you don't throw us off up here. And we have rattles in-house here and a couple of hand drums so you can follow along.
Come into the throne room of our God, our God. Come into the throne room of our God, our God. Let His presence take you higher. Let His presence take you higher. Thanks to His working hand, His presence seen throughout the land, molded from Creator's hand. Come and see the beauty of His holy love, His holy love. Come and see the beauty of His holy love, His holy love. Let His wings bring you above. Let His wings bring you above. Okay, hold on. I'm not sure. Hold on a second. We're having technical wackiness.
Hang on, everyone. Don't lose your spot.
I think it was just the monitor, but let me. Okay. All right. think it was a monitor cable on this side. All right, so we'll jump back in on when we do the second "Let His Wings Bring You Above." So basically where we were, and then it'll go into the vocables. Let His wings bring you above. Let His wings bring you above. To adore the risen one. To adore the risen one. To adore the risen Son. Way oh high, Yahweh, high oh high, way oh high, way oh high, way oh high, Yahweh, high oh high, way oh high, way oh high, way oh high, Yahweh oh high, way oh high, Yahweh oh high, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho. Way oh high, Yahweh oh high, way oh high, Yahweh oh high, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho. Way oh high, Yahweh oh high, way oh high, Yahweh oh high, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho, Yahweh ho Yahweh ho.
All right, way to go, everyone. Very good song. All right, we're going to turn it over to the Lord's Prayer from the First Nations version. And if you...
Creation Insights first.
Creation Insights with Heaven. Forget what I just said. I always throw a mistake in there. It's kind of a native thing. You never show that you're perfect. You always...
I have no problem with that.
They say if you do beadwork and you make it almost perfect, you got to, at the end there, you got to throw in a little mistake. Yeah, just so you don't say you're perfect. There's only one perfect person, and they crucified him. So with that, we'll turn it to Heaven with the Creation Insights, coming to us from Illinois.
Yes, I'm from Bloomington, Illinois, the homeland of like the Peoria, the Kickapoo, the Kaskaskia. A lot of other tribes moved through the area too. Today I wanted to share a book that I found at the thrift store. It's called Pathways to Faith. And inside the cover, there's a little dedication in like really scrolly lettering, and it says, "To Miss B, and almost like Gran, thanks for your friendship, Gwyn." And it's signed in 1971. So that kind of makes me chuckle. Like this has probably been on a thrift store shelf for a while. It's by Dean Wally, and Don Dabowski does the illustrations. And the illustrations are pretty cool because they have like little plants inside of them. Like the papyrus has ferns and stuff. Nature holds many pathways, bordered by flowers and ferns that glisten with the morning dew, covered with a mosaic of brown and golden leaves. shaded by stately trees that brush their branches against the sky. They are pathways to faith. For the eternal truths are not hidden in dark, forbidden places. They appear with every step we take on the pathway to faith. Our faith is lifted up and made strong as we wander through a forest where pine trees point to heaven. They are silent children of earth, living towers of faith, seeking a kinship with the sky. The path spirals up a mountain, the horizons roll back as we ascend, and the strength that is within the mountain becomes a part of us. As we climb, the grandeur of the mountain encourages us to keep climbing. In the purpose of nature, we begin to understand the purpose of our own lives, and our faith is renewed. On a warm summer day, we follow a pathway to a lazy meadow sprinkled with buttercups, bees that dart from the flower to flower, intent on the business of gathering pollen and honey. And we find faith that the force that guides the bee will direct our own course as well. The wind seems to blow capriciously. It reveals its purpose. Its invisible fingers pick up tiny seeds and scatter them over the earth. The wind's cool breath refreshes us after the beat of a day. Sometimes it is heavy with fragrance. Sometimes it is moist with rain. And as the wind's voice sings through the forest, calling out all living things, we respond to that call and become one with the purpose of the wind. Ruha. Ahead of us, suddenly a doe and her fawn streak across the path and disappear in the forest. And the sight of these beautiful creatures who were born free remind us that we are also free. Free to embrace the faith that fuels our own existence with purpose. Sometimes our lives seemed hurried and chaotic, like geese beating the air with their wings, invading the sky. But geese soon arrow across the sky in grace and beauty, and seeing their passage gives us faith in the order of life. We see the spider weaving its web in silken symmetry, and we understand how the pattern of our days can be woven from golden moments into timeless beauty. As the sun nourishes the earth, the light of faith can nourish our lives and can help us grow closer to the source of life. As the moon pulls the tides, the flower of faith can cause our lives to flow out of oceans of turbulence and fear toward quiet serenity. Along nature's pathway, a fullness of love inspires our faith. A divine love brushes the flowers with indigo and vermilion, contours the radiant hills, burnishes the plains with gold grain. An eternal love gives us the daily dreams and drama of sunset, spreading crimson over the horizon. And to dispel the melancholy shadows of evening, we have love's reminder in a star. A bird soars joyfully across the sky. Its beauty tells of a love that is greater than all others, and our hearts find wings with which to soar to newer heights of faith. Across our path, a tree has fallen, yet even in death, it has promise of life. For its life is flowing into the earth from which it came, and it is becoming tall grass and violets. It is changing into velvety moss and white mushrooms, and so its life will go on. We see the promise of light and happiness in the miracle of sunrise, and every beam warms our heart with a smile of reassurance. In the endless procession of the seasons, we see the assurance of the endless cycle of life, carrying us beyond and into the mystery, into a place where the seasons of the heart will forever turn. The pathways of nature take us to places that no mortal can reveal to us, for they wind through the beauty of the world, through the secrets of our own hearts, drawing us ever closer to the source of life. And as the journey progresses, our faith grows ever stronger. We find that we never see shadows as long as we face the sun. And we understand that the joy of our days is truly unlimited when we look up into the unknown and count the stars. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Heaven. Very good. All right, we'll turn to the Lord's Prayer. And those of you who are new to us here, we're going to be reading the Lord's Prayer from the First Nations version. And as he cues that up, if you don't have one of these, you can contact us and we'll try to get you one of these New Testament, First Nations version New Testament. And I'm also thinking of a challenge for you all, especially since we've been trying to memorize this Lord's Prayer. Now that people have the Psalms and Proverbs, I think I'll see if I can get Brian to put the 23rd Psalm into our reading. So every now and then we'll read the 23rd Psalm. So that'll be another challenge for us to memorize that whole one. So a lot of people memorize both of those. So let's go into this.
All right.
Brian?
Creator sets free, shows us how to pray. O great Spirit, our Father from above, we honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us day by day the elk, the buffalo, the salmon, the corn, the squash, and the wild rice, all the things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others who have done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray from your good road, and set us free from the evil one and his worthless ways. May it be so.
All right. Yeah, so everyone that's new, go ahead and practice that a little bit, because what we did here a little while ago, and we're going to do this coming the fifth Monday of the month, we're going to give everybody a chance to practice that and show their talent of memorization. And we'll all go through, whoever wants to. I always do it, and I've gotten better at it, and I was able to share this at a powwow where I was asked to do the opening prayer. So with that, we'll turn over to the smoke signals. And that's one of the announcements I wanted to share there, is that we'll practice learning the 23rd Psalms from the new First Nations version, Psalms and Proverbs. And with that introduction, our next week's speaker is going to be Terry Wildman, the person who introduced the language behind the Psalms and Proverbs. So he's going to be sharing with us and telling us about how the Psalms and Proverbs came to be and the work that he put into it, and be sharing a message with us as well on that. So as you know, Laura and I and Sarah Allen, we took a quick trip down to Phoenix, and we were at it's called a co-creators event. And rather than try to explain it, if you were to look up co-creators, and you will understand that it's everybody sharing together on how you can create something new. So it was really, really interesting. We got a lot of good ideas, and one thing that's really new that we're going to try here is boosting our post. Ever see that on your post? Yeah, you can boost it, and what it does, it just selects a population of people that you might try to hit and get more get more views. So we're going to try that as we go into the future here for that. So Terry Wildman will be coming up with us here. And after that, on the 29th, we'll have our prayer day. And then we're going to go into October. If you didn't get a chance to see us last week, we did an introduction to Richard Twist. And you can go back in our archives on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and you can see that little segment. And especially on YouTube, you can take that little dot and you can slide it over, right over to the speaker, and hear Richard Twist. A lot of people don't know of him or heard of him, but he was one of the leading voices back in the day here when we were getting started with this kind of ministry. It's very unique. We're doing this kind of ministry right here in person inside a sanctuary, as well as we have a big TV, a monitor, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. We're monitoring at the same time here. It's kind of making it all happen. And we have a couple, Sarah, I believe we got a couple of your people on tonight as well. So that's very good. So that's what we're looking at. So all of October, the 4 weeks in October, we're going to do several of Richard Twist's videos that he has. And if you want to jump ahead and you want to listen to him on your own, you can go ahead. It's on YouTube, Richard Twist, TWISS. So check that out. And so we get into anybody. I know Petadaka usually has another announcement there. Usually you got one today, you know.
Hey, well, there are a few interesting things going to happen this next week. Well, Saturday is Kisa's 8th birthday, so happy birthday to Kisa. And then for anyone else celebrating a birthday, we all wish you a happy birthday and a good year. And then also my uncle will be visiting us this week, so if you could offer some prayers for travel and for just getting him here safely, that'd be much appreciated. He's coming to celebrate the birthday. And also, there's a few powwows going on. I think Shaquan was maybe this next weekend, or I can't fully remember. But I know that the Southern Youth Fair was a good powwow. So yeah, so thank you for the prayers for my people too, the Southern Youth people. And so I'm not really sure what else. That's what I keep thinking. But yeah, and also happy birthday to Red Wolf. My nephew. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
I have this too.
And Kisa also has a loose tooth. But thank you for giving us this little bit of time. And congratulations to everyone with any kind of special things that may have happened for you. New job, new car, new husband, new wife. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I hope you all have a great week. So yeah, thank you for this time.
Yeah, thank you, Petadaka. Oh, speaking of powwows, next week we'll be having one here. I'm sorry, not next week. We the 27th, a brand new powwow is going to be here in Albuquerque. It's going to be at Bullhead Park, and that's at the corner of Louisiana and Gibson here in the very southeast side of town here, but right next to the Air Force Base. But that's it's called Painted Sky. It's at Bullhead Park. It's going to be a brand new one. I'm thinking of setting up and dancing that one. I dance Northern Traditional, and it's time for me to get out there and get some exercise. So I may be down there with my family. We try to set up a nice little canopy too, so that people that know us can come around, and then we give them information about Good Medicine Way too while we're there. And also, as we the book group, we're going to be doing another chapter here. We're going to probably come out a little bit of chapter 6, but then jump into chapter 7, the spatial problem of history, and Vine Deloria Jr. And we're going to be hearing of Vine Deloria Sr. tonight from Kimberlee. So that's great. I know one of our new viewers here, she just bought the book, and she might join us on that too. So with that, I want to talk about the giving. There's different ways to give. And especially if you're able to help us out financially, even if it's like $10, that goes a long way here because we have a matching grant. So your $10 turns into $20. So that's a good way to help us out here so that we can keep the program going and making sure everybody gets a chance to hear, the message in a totally different environment and a way of presenting it different than church as we know it. Some of us go to church and it's like, oh my goodness, it's so repetitious and it's very so, I want to say mundane sometimes. It's just so consistent that way. There's no freshness in it. I don't see sometimes. So Good Medicine Way opens it up and also brings it in a very cultural package too. So with that, Brian's going to turn it over to Brian to share with you how you can give online. We have many different electronic ways and in-person ways too.
Yeah, and one other thing before we get totally into that, especially with the powwow coming up on the 27th, there is a group of Southern style drummers that are holding workshops every Wednesday night
Nikki,
at
this is
the University of New Mexico.
how to sing.
And it looks like it's in the Maxwell Center, the Maxwell Museum Center, or the Hibbins Center, rather, which is at 440 Redondo on the UNM campus. So yeah, every Wednesday from 6 to 8, they're doing drum workshops. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, but I know like they're covering drumming and protocol and, kind of everything that you would need to know
And dancing.
to be involved. Yeah, and dancing too.
And dancing too. You can learning
Yeah.
how to dance.
Yeah, so I got in contact with one of the guys who's helping to organize, and he said they're going to be doing it for at least the whole fall semester. And then they're not sure after that. So, but yeah, so Wednesday nights on the UNM campus if you're in the Albuquerque area. It's in the Hibbins Center, which is at 440 Redondo. And let me see, I think he posts about it on the, if you're on Facebook, there's a group called NAAN, N-A-A-N. It's the Native American Albuquerque Network. And he posts about that. I'm trying to look at his map. So it looks like it's by University and Martin Luther King Drive. So it's like by that corner.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's try to go there. I'm open that night and go there. And I've sang Southern style before. It's a little different beat, mostly Northern style. So yeah, it'd be good.
All right, yeah, and as Casey said, we have a matching grant right now, so that any money you give to Good Medicine Way is doubled. So yeah, it's a great time to give. And we've got a blanket in-house here. I'm going to be putting a digital blanket up on the screen. And on that digital blanket is be 2 QR codes. One is PayPal specific. The other one, which is the better one to use, has like our Good Medicine Way logo on it. But if you scan those, that'll take you to an interface where you can give online. And the link to that is also at the top of our Good Medicine Way Facebook page. And it's actually pretty easy. It's, HTTPS, but then it's goodmedicineway.breezechms.com give online. But that's where the QR code will take you, and that link is also posted at the top of our Good Medicine Way page. If you don't like or are unable to give online, our mailing address will also be up on the screen. That's 3301 Coors Boulevard Northwest, Suite R349, and that's Albuquerque, New Mexico 87120. And that'll also be up on the screen on the blanket so that you can get things to us that way if you prefer. Also, if you have non-monetary things or other ways that you would like to share or contribute to Good Medicine Way, and you're not quite sure how to work that out, just send us an email at gmw4abq@gmail.com. Again, that's the letters GMW for Good Medicine Way, the number 4, and then the letters ABQ for Albuquerque.
Yeah.
So GMW for ABQ@gmail.com.
Yes, I'll share something there too on that. Giving of other things. A lady that is moving into assisted living home had a house full of artwork, different Native American art, pictures on the wall, pottery, many other things. She just said and got a hold of me through a couple different connections and gave us about 60 pieces of art. And we're going to be able to use that in a fundraiser here in the future. But it's all in my daughter's house right now. And on my next trip up there, I'll be bringing that all back. And then here in-house, we'll probably have some kind of silent auction, maybe an Indian taco sale as well, some kind of dinner going on here to make that all happen. So,
Yeah, you have to get up there before your daughter opens her own art gallery.
oh man, it was really something. But something like that. A lady who husband passed and she's moving to assisted living, just felt like she wanted to donate it in a good way because her and her husband traveled the Southwest and just collected so much items. So it was just a blessing, and she was just a wonderful lady to talk to. So that.
All right, and with that, I'll throw the blanket up on the screen and do another little Jonathan Miracle song. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Jesus set us free. Yes, Lord, Jesus set us free. Jesus set us free. Yes, Lord, Jesus set us free. Jesus set us free. Yes, Lord, Jesus set us free. Lord Jesus set us free. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Jesus, heal our land. Yes, Lord, Jesus, heal our land. Jesus, heal our land. Yes, Lord, Jesus, heal our land. Jesus, heal our land. Yes, Lord, Jesus, heal our land. Lord, Jesus, heal our land. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah. Hey, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, Yah.
We're gonna have to get a few more drums in here so you guys can be singing out there too. So see what we can do about that.
I didn't get enough people to get the big drum out.
Yeah, I can't know anybody here. All right, we'll be reading Creator's Word here. Jamie with us, coming from Texas. reading Isaiah 43:2.
Good evening, Good Medicine Way family. I just wanted to briefly say that when they put up this Bible verse for the service tonight, it caught my attention. I felt like it was timely with the things I've been going through with my health. It was very timely and also very encouraging. So I felt inspired to read this and declare this over my situation. And I just want to encourage people to also receive it over whatever situations they're going through. So I will be reading from Isaiah chapter 43, verse 2, and it's the New Living Translation. So here we go. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you.
Right. Thank you, Jamie. And we'll go into a little stillness time, and after that, I will introduce our speaker. Right. Our speaker tonight is a good friend here. Her and I got connected here, and I think it was in uh, Cleveland, Ohio. Man, it must have been 15 years ago or so now. But Dad, we did a workshop together, and it came out pretty good the first time we got to work together. And during that time, we got to meet Dan Hawk. And I think she also works with him too. Well, Kimberlee is an adjunct professor with NATES, our seminary that we have started here. And she also works with research writing. So she helps people with research and writing in an academic way. Very talented young lady. She's going to be talking to us tonight about her research topic with Vine Deloria Sr. So I want to turn it over to Kimberlee and give us all your attention to her. She put a lot of work into this. Kimberlee?
Thank you, Casey. It's good to see everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. If I turn my camera off, it's because my internet is unstable. And sometimes that helps it from glitchiness. But I am from the Yankton Sioux Nation, the Dakota people, from the White Swan community in Lake Andes, South Dakota, the southeastern corner of the state, on the banks of the Missouri River and on the border of Nebraska, where the Santee Sioux are. And I come from my mom, Christine Medicine Horn, who is a pipe carrier and a boarding school survivor and has walked on into the spirit world. And I dedicate the work that I do to her and my family. So I'm going to share my screen with you and discuss the Deloria family. I'm writing this dissertation on 4 generations of the Deloria family, starting with Sasway, who had a vision. Let me bring this up. Let me see if I remember how to share my screen. Okay. Alright. So I've called this On the Road with Vine Deloria Sr. and Jr., and there's a specific reason I've done that. Let me see if I can do the slideshow. I'm going to minimize.
We can see it. I don't know how it looks on your end though, but we can see your slideshow.
Okay. I am trying to. Hmm. Okay, that's probably as good as it gets on my end. So the Deloria family starts with Sasway, Francois Deloria, who his native people called him Sasway because it sounded like Francois. And Sasway had a vision, and in his vision, he had to choose between two roads. And he had to put himself into a position where he would be closer to Creator, going up on a hill and fasting and praying and engaging in purification so that there would be no earthly distractions for him. And he would be able to hear or clearly see the vision that the Creator had for him. And his vision is very specific. It's chapter 1 of the dissertation that I'm writing. And he had to choose between two red roads. And he looked down both roads. This is a paraphrase. And he, after much time observing everything that he could, decided to choose the red road. And there was a hawk and an owl who were waiting to hear what his decision would be. And once he made his decision, the owl said to the hawk, "You'd better come over here. He's going to need all the help he could get." And they explained to Sasway that the red road was him choosing the ways of Christianity for the next 4 generations of his life. And in doing so, his family would go through many trials and sufferings. It wouldn't be an easy road, but they would contribute significantly to the world with the things that they were called to do. Had he chosen the other road, the family would have been prosperous, but they would have contributed little or nothing to the world around them. And so in our 7th generation's teachings, it's natural to look back at the ancestors and to look forward to the future generations and see what is going to be the best for everyone, not just for the singular person. Sasway's son is Philip Deloria, and he lived between 1853 and I think it's 1931. I can't see it because of the Zoom windows. 1931, I'm going to say. It might be 1933. Part of Sasway's vision was to call someone he loved very much the name Tipi Sapa, which also means Black Lodge. And Philip took on the name Philip once he adopted Christianity. He was walking by a church one day and he had heard the congregants singing, "Guide me, O thou great Jehovah." I may have gotten the name incorrect. And it struck him in the heart and he couldn't forget this song. And he went by a couple of times and it drew him in. It was the music that drew him in that he needed to see. I'm still trying to figure out how to minimize. Okay. So Philip Deloria was the first Indian Episcopalian priest on the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. Now, he's from the Dakota Nation and lived down with the Yankton people, but his mother's people were up near Standing Rock. So when they placed him up near Standing Rock, which is the home of Sitting Bull's people, he was not among strangers. He ended up serving for about 25 years, and his likeness and image has been made into a statue of one of 99 saints that are on display in the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. He was Vine Sr.'s father. His daughter, one of his daughters was Ella Cara Deloria, and how I started the dissertation was reading about Ella's life. And it was so fascinating to me that I wanted to know what the rest of her family did. So she's the daughter of Philip Deloria, the sister of Vine Sr., and granddaughter of Sosway. She's the great aunt of Vine Deloria Jr. She is known for being a Dakota linguist. She preserved the Dakota language. She translated the Sundance from the Dakota language to English, and she translated it in the Dakota language because she knew that the language was slipping away through the processes of colonization. And so she was able to have the foresight to know that performing the Sundance in the Dakota language by people who now speak English was going to need both of those languages of understanding. She was a physical education teacher. She graduated from Columbia University with her Bachelor of Science. She's an author and an ethnographer. She accomplished in her time as a female academic some astounding things. And she was born in 1889 and lived until 1971. Vine Victor Deloria Sr., 1901 to 1990, the son of Philip Deloria, grandson of Sosway, younger brother of Ella, father Divine Deloria Jr. And at the peak of his service with the Episcopal Church, he was the archdeacon of the Niobrara area in South Dakota. And then Vine Victor Deloria is the fourth generation of this particular dissertation, and he was born in 1933 and walked on in 2005. Now he presents himself as from the Lakota Nation and the son of Vine Victor Sr., the great nephew of Ella Deloria, grandson of Philip, great grandson of Sosway. He was a theologian, also a lawyer, author, and an Indigenous political activist. And the thing that people tend to remember about him most, one of the things, is that he was credited for starting the Red Power movement, which called in the 1960s and the 1970s to Indigenous people everywhere to remember their stories, to remember their traditions, to remember their language, to go back to their homelands so that they could remember who they are as Indigenous people. Self-determination era. Okay, I'm going to escape from here. So it's important to know who the Deloria family is so that when I go through the next part, talking about Vine Deloria Sr. and Jr., it will be, it'll make some more sense to you. And I'm going to pull up my paper. I'm going to do the thing that most people don't like to do, but I'm going to read from the paper because I have it all marked up what I'm going to present to you. So to achieve some understanding of Vine Deloria Jr.'s exploration of religion, A refresher on his father, Vine Sr.'s life, is necessary because their lives and contributions to society overlap, as with each of the 4 generations of the Deloria family in this particular study. In 1967, Vine Deloria Sr. retired from his work with the Episcopal Church, having surpassed the low expectations for spiritual leadership by Native Americans, for which the American Christian or the general public may have never thought possible. Now, the 5th generation, Philip Joseph Deloria, is a professor of history at Harvard. He asserts the years between 1961 and 1967 were among the most productive and important in his life. This is Vine Sr.'s life. He traveled widely throughout the state, giving the Episcopal Church its most significant presence in years. He sought to strengthen the annual convocations and the cross-denominational meetings of the Brotherhood of Christian Unity. And that is a society that Philip Deloria, along with 3 other men, founded. Vine Sr. argued effectively for South Dakota's Indian people in a variety of state and local venues. Indeed, Deloria may have exercised his greatest influence in a more pedestrian position, for here he was able to model for both Indians and non-Indians a cross-cultural kind of leadership, one that originated in his family heritage and cultural background, but that carried his own personal stamp as well. It was the kind of leadership he had tried and failed to develop at the national level. He had success at the state level, but not the national level. So something that's important about his success was his acceptance of his congregants who were both Indian and non-Indian alike. And I use the word Indian liberally because that is the language that is used of his time. That's the wording. It would be difficult to say which group, if one were to divide them, he had to work harder to help. Was it his indigenous people or his non-indigenous congregants? Nonetheless, he had the attention of others who were watching him. But we look to his body of work in the study to learn what patterns of leadership he excelled at and how they can be applied today. Because, as we're all familiar with, churches can still struggle with what intercultural or cross-cultural ministry looks like when it operates as fully functional. That is not to say Vine Sr. did not experience discouraging setbacks, but he persisted. And that is what made me think of Isaiah 43, verse 2, for all of the Deloria families that are represented in this dissertation study. They did not have an easy time. All throughout everything that Vine Deloria Sr. was going through, his son, Vine Deloria Jr., was watching him. And a little bit of background about Vine Deloria Jr. He was born in 1933, and he attended off-reservation schools in Martin, South Dakota, and occasionally traveled to tribal dances, held openly once again after the passage of the Indian Reorganization Act in 1934. As a child, he also participated in the rich communal and ceremonial life that has long characterized the Sioux Episcopal Church, which reaches its fullest expression in the annual Niobrara Convocation, now in its 126th year. And this was 126th year at the time this particular book that the quote is being pulled from. Deloria left home in 1949 and finished his high school diploma during 2 years at a private college preparatory school in Connecticut. Compare that to Vine Sr., who went to the same mission school as his sister Ella, St. Elizabeth's. And that was the school and the church that Philip Deloria, their father, was a priest, Episcopalian priest at. So after Vine Sr. and Ella's mother died, he could still speak fluent Dakota, and he was placed at the Kearney Military Academy. Later on, he attended St. Stephen's College and Episcopal School, and finally to the Episcopal Church's General Theological Seminary. Whereas Vine Jr.'s education starts off the reservation, I wanted to know, how did his off-reservation primary education help him to fulfill Sazway's vision? Because there is a specific difference. If you think about it, Ella and Vine Sr. are both being raised in an Episcopalian mission school. And there were rules that had to be followed. For example, they were not allowed to speak their native tongue while in school, but they were raised to speak their native tongue while at home and during the summertime. One source says it was required of them to know both languages. That was something that their family was passionate about. When we look at Vine Jr.'s education, it shows the evolution in the opportunities that were available at the time to Indigenous people. So in a way, the Episcopal Church was strongly involved in his background indirectly because the Episcopal clergy made such a small amount of money. And it has been documented that the Indigenous clergy earned 50% less than the white clergy did. So providing school for their children was a compensation of sorts from which his father, his Aunt Ella, and his grandfather benefited. There seems little doubt that Vine Deloria Jr. and the other Indian children in his same age group were now considered quite capable of a more academically rigorous schooling trajectory and attended school with white students. So the segregation that was so popular in the reservation boarding schools or the mission schools, although not as much, was changing. It was shifting. Everybody was in one classroom. And that caused its own challenges. But Vine Jr.'s education path led him to attending the college prep school while finishing last 2 years of high school. And then he had a degree in general science from Iowa State. Afterward, he attended a Lutheran seminary, and then he earned his Juris Doctorate in 1970. So when you look at his education with the general science, with the college prep school, with the law degree, heavy logic-based Western Academy education. I don't tend to look at it as him being fully assimilated because I don't agree with that. I don't think anyone is fully assimilated. And there's reasons why I've come to believe that. Because we could still speak our languages, even though it's taken a while to reclaim some of that, because there are land back things, because there are tribes that are doing all kinds of fantastic work in terms of educating their students and making better lives for their people. So I don't say that everyone is completely assimilated because traditional ways are still known. Storytelling is still known. Stories of origin are still known. And if these things were not known, then we could say that the Indian was totally assimilated. But as it turns out, the main goal of the government at the time failed. If we had all disappeared, if we had all vanished, if we had all subsumed into white society, we wouldn't be sitting where we are today, doing what we do. The other thing about Vine Deloria Jr.'s education is it points to his wide berth of interests because he was a voracious reader. He was interested. His curiosity was off the charts. He wanted to know about everything that had any kind of interest to him. So we could look at that as a multi or an interdisciplinary education, which is a type of education that most Indigenous people are drawn to, more than just one type of category or box. We want to know about everything. And to be effective in a changing society or to even hope to achieve lasting or real change, One must be fluent in speaking to more than one audience. And I'm sure everyone sitting in this room today, if you think about it, you can attest to that. Vine Deloria Jr. traveled to ceremonies with his father, but they seemed more of the Episcopal kind and less of the sacred Dakota or Lakota ceremony, although he may have learned the teachings of them. Author Treat provides a brief overview. Occasionally, they traveled to tribal dances, held openly once again after the passage of the Indian Reorganization Act. He once described a visit to the site of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre as the most memorable event of his early childhood, and his father often pointed out survivors still living on the reservation. In doing so, Vine Deloria Jr.'s father demonstrated to his son both honor and respect by pointing out the Wounded Knee survivors. Vine Deloria Jr.'s lived experience was still a mix of the indigenous and the Americanized world, but in a different way. His educational experience and childhood steered him later in life to make significant contributions to the institutions of the Christian church, education, and understanding government policies and broken treaties. Deloria Jr. lived during a different time in history and came into his writing in the early and mid-60s during great civil unrest. In the afterword of Vine Deloria Jr.'s For This Land, Writing on Religions in America, in The Beauty of Hindsight, he tells stories of growing up, which shows how being both a Lakota and raised in an Episcopal household gave him a unique perspective. Growing up in a small mixed-blood community of 700 on the eastern edge of Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, he says, I uncritically accepted the idea that the old Dakota religion and Christianity were both, and this is in quotation marks, true, and in some mysterious way compatible with each other. There were to be sure Christian fundamentalists with their intolerance and the old traditional Indians who kept their practices hidden. But the vast majority of the people in the vicinity more or less assumed that a satisfactory blend had been achieved that guaranteed our happiness. In his search, he challenged people to define religion for themselves and then, once professed, to adhere to the preferred set of practices or beliefs as evidence of faithfulness or loyalty. And so he wasn't saying you have to be this way or you have to be that way. He said, decide what you believe and then live that way. Later in his life, he came to a point where he searched for evidence of truth in other religions, and he found them all lacking to some degree. For example, not all Christian religion was salvific for everyone. Not every religion was the one and only truth, with the rest discounted as untrue. Some religions seem to fall into definitions of a cult or fall short of the capabilities they claimed, and yet it was the people who professed their beliefs and then behaved contrarily that caused serious and ongoing problems. It was an enigma. An example is of those who professed Christianity but engaged in genocidal practices towards the Indian children in the boarding schools. Vine Deloria Jr. sought out theologians, he studied sciences, he questions philosophers in his quest for truth, and this is how he questioned the mystery of human life thoroughly as he could and with logical thought. He certainly had been raised in the firm foundation of two sets of values that were compatible, but one could not be totally exchanged for the other, especially for the Christian fundamentalist. If both religions practiced in tandem could bring happiness, how could either one be the sole residence of truth? Deloria Jr. speaks to this analogous thought as something to cause confusion, and to date, it still does in many churches and creates a divide as to whom is acceptable or not, because Indigenous people still remain largely misunderstood. Another memory that Vine Jr. shares about his father is this one. Although my father was an Episcopal priest with a large number of chapels in a loosely organized Episcopal missionary district known to the Episcopalians as Corn Creek, he was far from an Orthodox follower of the white man's religion. I always had the feeling that within the larger context of religion, in quotation marks, which in a border town meant the Christian milieu, there was a special area in his spiritual life, in which the old Dakota beliefs and practices reigned supreme. He knew 33 songs, some of them social, some ancient, and several spiritual songs used in a variety of ceremonial contexts. Driving to his chapels to hold Christian services, he would open the window of the car and beat the side of the door with his hand for the drum beat and sing song after song. What a wonderful way to share Vine Deloria Sr. to make him more three-dimensional, to make him come more alive, more approachable to us who are learning about his life. Vine Deloria Jr. makes no mention of his father teaching him songs, but if he had accompanied his father more than once, he might have had the opportunity to learn the songs. Perhaps it was his father's preference not to teach his son all of those songs. There's nothing documented about that. To know that Vine Jr. was present or had heard the songs enough to differentiate between the social and the sacred is comforting. It means an indigenous identity was passed along to the next generation and provides evidence that not all was lost to the Dakota Lakota during colonization, as is a consistent claim that everything was lost to the white man. If this were the truth, not one sacred ceremony or song would be known, not one story. There would be no stories to tell of our ancestors. Vine Deloria Jr. was an inheritor of these Dakota and Lakota beliefs and practices, but it seems to be on a lesser scale than that of his father or his grandfather, and had certainly changed from Saswe's day. Perhaps it was the passing of time or the persistence of colonization that created this change. Vine Deloria Jr. elaborates, Christianity for my father offered comfort in a world that was grim and foreboding for the Sioux people and the settlers in that barren prairie setting. He loved the Christian hymns and saw them as a means of articulating the larger spiritual world to his congregations. He also prayed consistently to the Christian God when seeking guidance for his life. But when it came to serious illness or physical danger, he reverted immediately to the Dakota understanding of the world, assuring me one time in a frightful thunderstorm that the thunders were Saswe's friends and therefore obligated to treat our family with kindness. He consulted Black Elk on several occasions, knew the various medicine men in several of the reservations, and had many wondrous things to say about an old Yankton medicine man named Redleaf, whose exploits were well known, even after nearly a century and a half had passed. If Vine Deloria Sr. had experienced confusion or a sense of overwhelming pressure to choose Christianity above all else, he did not express this in the way he lived his life. Or he did not trouble Vine Jr. with the pressures to be all or nothing. Vine Sr.'s knowing of when to use both in the long run shaped Vine Jr.'s perspective that all or nothing religion cannot deliver every comfort and that it was better to have more than one way. So Vine Deloria Jr. spends a great deal of time and energy pondering all of this and discovering truths from science, philosophers, theologians, indigenous spiritual people. And he says, I saw instead religion as simply a means of organizing a society, articulating some reasonably apparent emotional truths, but ultimately becoming a staid part of social establishments that primarily sought to control human behavior and not fulfill human potential. What in some Christian denominations might call fellowship, accountability, or church family, Vine Jr. sees as a way of assuming a kind of herd mentality of needing to be saved from one's lack of self-control, and in doing so, this diminishes human potential. This kind of religion was simply not attractive to him. The depth in which Vine Jr. seeks the answers of the true benefits of religion is refreshing. There's no problem with questioning God. All of us do it every day. God, are you sure you know what you're doing up there? Are you sure this is what you had in mind for me? Are you sure this is what you want me to do? We all question God. There's no problem with that. He wants us to be in communication with him. But countless indigenous people of many nations were expected to simply comply with a human misinterpretation of Christianity. Deloria Jr. overtly explores where humans have failed in their understanding of religion and of indigenous people. In fact, Vine Jr. states, the more I learned about world religions, the more respect I had for the old Dakota ways. Even so, he does not attest to any personal practice of said ways. He speaks honestly about his experiences. With my background as a, in quotation marks, church family, I always had some contact with people in the institutional church, and I recognize that breaking through both the historical background of religion among Indian people and changing the institutional patterns of their lives was a task that required utmost patience and understanding. Vine Jr. says, I half-heartedly renounced Christianity, causing some surprise among old acquaintances from my youth, but did not become born again, a born-again traditional Indian practitioner, because much of the ceremonial practice was simply too foreign to who I was. But I am not to be bothered when people say I have no standing among some traditional groups, because indeed I do not. This quote really stunned me when I came across it, because he was considered the most prolific Indian intellectual of the 20th century. To see him say he doesn't really belong, has no standing among some traditional groups, is really quite interesting to think about. There's so much more that we could talk about, but I think for the most part, you're getting the idea, the struggle, and the complexity of his life, of the life of his ancestors, and how he came to approach religion the way in which he did. Because people would say he was bold, overt, blunt, those types of things. And maybe he was, but maybe he was just saying what a lot of people were thinking to begin with. He just wanted people to settle on one belief, whatever it was, and then live that out. Like a lot of indigenous people throughout the colonization processes with Christianity, denominations did not make any sense. It was the place where they saw the different denominations arguing with each other and trying to decide who was better. I'll give you one more example of the curiosity that Vine Deloria Jr. is. He wrote a response in 1965 to Lawrence E. Berry's The Indian in a Cultural Trap. He responded with his pointed criticism by writing The Missionary in a Cultural Trap. So he exchanges Indian for missionary, missionary for Indian, in a paragraph by paragraph response. And here's an example of how Lawrence Berry sees indigenous people, the Indian. So Berry says, Indian culture and ideas are attractive from a distance. Indians have a tradition. Now remember, Barry is a missionary to Indians. Indians have a tradition, for example, of sharing with each other. Those of us accustomed to the American culture, where private property is taken for granted, are tempted to look upon Indian sharing as a generosity that many Americans lack. Again, to a country proud of its tradition of independence, the Indian dislike for sticking to routine tasks and following orders can look like a noble tradition. Moreover, in the midst of anxieties and worries, a harassed American may think highly of the Indian tradition of enjoying the present and disregarding the future. He may take it to represent a form of high wisdom. It is comforting to, but alas, not correct, to think that wisdom can be had by simply observing and living with the movements of nature rather than through effort, thought, and discipline. And this quote is so perfect. It really gets to the crux of the way a westernized Christian point of view differs from an indigenous point of view in terms of ways of knowing and being. So Deloria responds and he says, missionaries have a tradition, for example, of wanting Indian people to want the same things they want. Those of us accustomed to the Indian culture, where the right to be different is taken for granted, are tempted to look upon conformity to the missionaries' ideas as a pleasant means of getting along in modern society. Again, in a culture proud of the tradition of remaining silent unless one is asked by one's peers for one's opinion, the ability of the missionary to be an instant expert on all subjects can look like a noble tradition. It is comforting, but alas, not correct, to think that wisdom can be had simply by obeying theological doctrines and disciplines. Deloria Jr.'s sardonic response may prompt laughter, but the truth of where the missionaries botch opportunities for understanding and building a working, healthy relationship with Indians is met with a marked refusal to think the Indian has anything to offer anyone outside of their own traditions. This problem of blindness to the lived experiences of the Indians and their encounters with Christianity still plagues any kind of working relationship between the two groups to this day. All right, I'm going to stop there for now. I could go on more. There's so much more that's like totally fascinating, and I want to share it all, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And I do want to invite your thoughts, your questions. Not that I may be able to answer your questions, but what are your thoughts? What have you been provoked to think? You know, I'm very interested in that type of thing. So I will be quiet for now. But thank you for listening.
All right, yeah, we're going to go into a reflection time, and I would suggest you put a bookmark there, Kimberlee, and we'll have you on for part 2 in the future. How's that? I know we want to hear a little bit more about that. So, Brian?
All right, yeah. So little flute music just to kind of collect your thoughts, and then we'll enter into discussion. floor is open.
Sister, could I just say thank you so much for bringing that to us and sharing your wisdom and all your hard work that you've done. One thing that I discovered Vine Deloria about 20 something years ago, his God is Red book is packed up in storage somewhere. Anyways, but the thing I hadn't really thought before, you were talking about where he was talking about trying to encourage ones to, believe this way or believe this way, but believe one way. And now that you see how things and how it's gone on, to me, in a sense, he was like one of the first ones, really trying to emphasize relationship whatever you believe, however that is going to minister in your spirit with creator, have that, be that, instead of just trying to do, like that was interesting about the herd mentality. And back when he was younger, and these days coming up, it was a lot more. You didn't have women ministers, you didn't have the freedom. uh there's still a lot that there's not there, but especially during his time, you could see how that would be. How he must. I can't. I think maybe that's one reason he could be come across as so curt sometimes, because it was like so obvious to him. Oh my goodness, look at all this, just can't you all, let's just do it. Honest, be straight ahead, and one thing I just wanted to say that one place where I enjoy learning some things, and the any younger ones here too also is on YouTube. There's still a lot of him on YouTube sharing some talks, and you find out how much he really, really did appreciate and love his tobacco. Yes, he did. So, but thank you, sister. I really appreciated that.
I was really intrigued when you were talking about Vine Jr. coming along with his father, Vine Sr. And then, of course, he's, the grandson of Sasway, who had this vision that we're going to be part of Christianity. And then Philip was like fully, invested in the church. But then you have Vine Sr., who is in one way like fully invested in the church. But just the picture of Vine Sr. going to different churches, in his role as a priest, driving a car. So, being very much part of the kind of, status quo society, but yet in the process of seemingly being assimilated, like layering on top of that, beating on the side of the car and singing traditional songs as they're going along. And just that, I mean, for me, it was kind of an allegory for like just how he was living his life of, being drawn into this thing that the status quo power was kind of having you do, but at the same time being fully true to his heritage and finding a way to walk that road together. And I think that's, and then I was thinking about that, like when you were reading Vine Jr.'s response to that guy, and how he was like not just kind of responding kind of spitefully to the guy, but really kind of using it as an opportunity to point out like the value of the traditional ways, and how there was things in the status quo society that were lacking because they didn't acknowledge this knowledge from the traditional ways. So like kind of like that kind of flow of all that. I don't know. I just thinking about that just really, I found that very, very interesting. I don't know if you have any more like insights to how you think maybe the different generations kind of influence each other, or how they reacted to each other. But yeah, I don't know. To me, that was really interesting.
I do have other insights because that's what the dissertation is about. But Philip Deloria, he did cross contextualization ministry to his people too. And in the dissertation, Ella Deloria writes a memorial about him after he passes away. And you can see just from the order of the way that she's written it and just from the things that she's learned from her father that he remained indigenous and Christian at the same time, but in a different way. And I'm so glad that nobody lost their indigeneity, because that's what people want to believe happened. And it just didn't. Even Black Elk, I mean, he found comfort in the old traditions as he became an old man. It's everything that I read about indigenous Christians in the older days, it seemed like they found more comfort in the traditional ways that they knew of than the Christian ways. So it's just so fascinating. So there is a lot more about it that contains just what you're saying.
I think, sister, it makes me think of Fool's Crow, Grandfather Fool's Crow. What another example for me. He even more so than Black Elk, came in, just kind of ultimately ended up being a fullness. Or anyways, from reading his teachings, he was the one who helped me be able to incorporate that idea of what I think Vine Deloria Jr. and the ones before. And how marvelous that Ella, I think, was that her first name, Ella, that great aunt, and that, I mean, you think about the time she was in to, like you said, all the things that she accomplished in the teachings, and she kept, makes me think of, I can't remember her name now, Martha, who took care of the pipe before it was passed on to Walter Black Elk. But how she was so intricate in that. And it makes me think of mantles. If you think of a mantle, how he had his dream and it continued on and it continued on and it continued on and it's continuing on still, but that anointing that hopefully as the younger ones more will be able, as learning to see in the spirit, and that it's okay to look in the spirit as well, but that's not a scary place, that's where creator is, it's all together. But encouraging that and just being able to marry it enough to help you to be able to step out without feeling like you're blasphemous, because you're really seeking truth, and you can't not really be seeking truth and ignore. I get what he said. You can't ignore one and then ignore the other, but you gotta be real, be whatever it is. Anyway.
I like what you said about mantles because it made me think about altars and like authenticity and how like the frequency of authenticity is precious. It's like reverent. And so like this man saw a relationship, especially with Christ, as like building an altar, but not like building his life as an altar to Christ, right? And building an altar is a very personal, authentic thing. It's not about icon or whatever. It's about holding reverence for the mystery and the sacredness of life. And so I think when you said mantle, that's what I thought of, was like how the relationship of coming to know our identity in Christ involves showing up authentically with what we have and from where we come from,
Right.
and from the relationships that have shaped us. And so I think there's a lot to be said about authenticity and medicine. So it's like if you acknowledge the medicine of everyone and everything, the way that you approach it is different because you understand everyone has their own potency. And so, I don't know. I was just thinking about this man and how when he was walking his walk with God, one of his non negotiables was being who he is,
Yeah.
like all of who he is.
Mhm.
And that's a beautiful thing. So that's what I thought of. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, Helen, go ahead.
I was thinking about how you shared that different cultures may have developed certain skills for coping with some part of the culture or just the human experience in general that can be very valuable to other cultures that haven't really developed that, and how it can be a blessing. And I saw that in a more concrete way when I was in Japan, that there was I was with a Japanese congregation, and the women's group with the church was really active. They were there 2 or 3 days a week, either cleaning or cooking or doing things. So they made a lot of use of the kitchen. And there was a German missionary, and she thought that she had the best way of how to run a kitchen. So, and she didn't like the way that they arranged the pots, pans, dishes, and stuff. So she put up a chart with all kinds of pictures and stuff of where they should put stuff. And I know the funny parts of the Japanese culture were two things. One, they avoid conflict, and two, they've learned how to really be calm in everything. So they just ignored it and put things wherever they wanted it to be. And I know it drove her crazy. At first, I wondered if it was kind of an ongoing joke, kind of to badger her. But when I talked to them, like sometimes they invited me to cook with them, and I realized, oh, that's why they put the knives over here, or that's why this is here, that, or that's why you keep this part of the refrigeration this in a separate part so that those two flavors don't mix or something. And I thought they had really good reasons, and I thought, it's their church and they're the ones who are doing all the cooking, so I thought they should be the ones in charge of it. But they wouldn't talk about it. All they would say about her is, yeah, she's a really good Bible teacher. But I mean, no matter what she had to say about the kitchen, they thought she had no authority, and I agreed. So I got where I just put stuff the way they were putting there, and we just thought, well, poor lady, maybe someday she'll catch on and realize that, you know, that was something that was important to them. They wanted it to make sense for cooking the kind of dishes that they wanted to cook and to have that sense, but they weren't going to pick a fight about it. And I guess she learned she wasn't going to either. So I remember when I left Japan, I remember wondering things. I wonder if they're still having those kitchen wars, those kind of understated ones. But anyway, I was admiring how they didn't start up a big conflict and how they were able to see the good that she was able to offer and just sort of let the rest of it roll off their back. And so that was my thought.
That tradition of the generation to generation, I grew up with that because to go back to just in my family alone, Elton Church and his wife Sarah, they were the founders of the little church that I grew up in, and then their son Lewis became my pastor for the 32 years that I was there, and then my mother and father also, being church attenders and teachers as well. It's just generation to generation created who I am, and just see that in your story as well, Kimberlee. Is that there's many folks that have come over generations and just not spoken up a lot about that. The generation of Christianity in the United States has had an impact in some, not in all, but a very few have taken it to heart and taken it on the next leg of the journey.
think Helen's insight like really just goes alongside like the Deloria family's experience really well of having that, you know, finding ways to, you know, do what you need to do and do what needs to be done in a good way without, you know, having to completely upset things that are the other way, and being able to find a way to navigate all that, because I think that's something that's really lost in our modern social environment, where we really want to just completely throw people into one box or one camp or another, and not allow individuals to have, you know, kind of their own diversity of thought. Like, oh, because you said this one thing, then I'm lumping you together with all these other people, even if you don't believe the same things that all those other people believe, but all of you said this one thing, so I'm, you know, putting you all together. And we do that so much, and there's so much kind of demonizing the other, in our culture right now. So I think that, you know, the story that Helen shared and just the example of the Deloria family is like something that's really, vitally needed in our culture right now.
It's like learning that how everything, like the knives being in their place, has its place. Everything has its place and its purpose and its use, but not at the expense of having to make it, you know, to give your power away, is how I learned it to be. Because every time we react, and or you know, like what you were saying, trying to marry what you were just saying too with what she said, but how that it's not, you know, the knives had their place, and eventually, you know, learning to be able, I guess, to be emotionally mature enough to learn that I don't have to make sure you understand. I understand. We understand. Maybe one day, you know, everyone will get to their place on their journey where they understand. And that Japanese culture to me, too, is always, man, the honor, the importance. I mean, probably their genealogies, they can trace theirs back farther than anybody, you know, and just because that's been so important. And, but that's one reason why Vine, the Deloria family, you know, that proliferation of that continuing, it just remind me, like you said, of how they both reflect each other, but in different, totally different cultures, but still that same vein, that same train of thought of creator of, for me, like when I think of mantles, I think ancestry as we come down the line, hopefully learning to where like the next generation, okay, well, this generation, thank goodness they were able to maybe fulfill their part of what we were all created for, their assignment in the beginning, when our generational lines were first coming in to do our part for creator who knows the beginning from the end to the last. And hopefully I'll be able to fulfill some semblance of what was supposed to pass down to me, so that then the next ones can come into more of a fullness of that, and then the fullness can just grow and go and go. But fear, cut that off, you know. That's what we live in, fear.
Yeah, and especially how the, you know, like when the German person came in, they felt like, oh, because I'm here to be the Bible teacher, I have to be the authority on everything, which was, you know, like an assumption that they were putting on themselves. That was not only not correct, but it was like really unfair to put that own burden on herself. But then like the Japanese folks there, they didn't write her off just because she obviously didn't know anything about how a kitchen should function in Japanese culture, but they just recognized, oh, you may not know what you're talking about in the kitchen, but we recognize that you have something good to bring to us with your Bible teaching. So they weren't, you know, they weren't just writing her off because she was making inappropriate suggestions about the kitchen, you know. So it's, you know, they were able to glean the good she had to bring and able to work around the stuff that she was bringing that wasn't so good. Go ahead, Jamie.
I just have a quick question. I was just wondering about his name, name Deloria, because I know the first guy's name was Sasway, and I'm just wondering where that name came in. Was the original guy Sasway Deloria, or when did they get the Deloria name?
Yeah, Sasway was Deloria, but it was spelled differently because the French came over and mingled with the native people that were in the area, like the northern areas. So it's an interesting question because Sasway was chief of Band 8, and that means the mixed bloods. So when they were funneling the Yankton people up into the South Dakota Territory before it became a state, I believe, the full bloods went one way, mixed bloods went another way. So there was that type of thing. The same thing happened with the Santee too, and probably other tribes as well. So, but it's interesting that he would be the chief just of the mixed bloods, not of the whole community of people. I don't know if that answers your question. There's a lot more to the history of Sasway, of course, than I presented here, because I wanted to do Vine Jr. and Vine Sr. connection. But good questions. Absolutely. There's more to know.
Thanks.
And I think a lot, like a possibly, as the Dawes Act and the censuses and the registries, that's where so many started around those time periods. Possibly, Jamie. I mean, I don't know, but possibly that's where it started changing. When you go back and you look at the Dawes Act and wherever the different tribes, censuses and registries, rolls, then you can start seeing kind of a path where those things kind of just started really happening for them. Oh, and sister, is Deloria, is that Italian? Is that French? Deloria.
I think it's French
Yeah.
because it was spelled DESL, capital LAURIERS. I can't pronounce it.
This has really made me want to learn so much more about, I can't say his name, says the first grandfather. Yes. So that, I just had seen that name. I knew nothing about it, and I'm so grateful.
Mm-hmm. I'll put the title of the book about Sasway in the chat.
Cool. Hey, this is Josh. I had a question for you, I think. So within when I read my video is a little bit odd right now, but when I read Vine Deloria Jr., I see a lot more kind of criticisms towards a lot of the culture and philosophy and stuff, which is fine. I understand he's reacting to that, but I was curious if he ever wrote like or in theology is kind of approach like what could be, like instead of like saying, hey, this is the difference or contrasting, hey, you guys should, it's okay to be Indian or this or that, but it's like, hey, like this is how you reimagine telling the faith, or maybe his dad a little bit, like, hey, this is how you would do it, or would you be kind of describe him as more kind of buying into like more of the traditional Anglican approach to doctrine and such, and even though the practices may change, did they ever go positive on writing like their theology down or that area? So less of a critique and more of a positive, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting question and one I don't have an answer to. It's worth exploring, of course. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question right now. I haven't read all of his books. He's written over 20 books. And I think I have 19 of them. But
You're
there's a
closer
lot.
than I am. I read about half a dozen or so, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he has in his writings imagined what could be, and that's what a lot of his writings cover, but it may not be done in a step one, step two, or a formulaic way. So I will say that.
fair enough. Yeah, and maybe I'm reading the wrong ones. I guess. I guess that would be kind of a different one too, because he's written so many of them, and like you said, there's a lot. And the reason I asked that is because I know I feel that's one of the challenges we have coming forward now is trying to talk about what could be. Because I think some of the battles before was could we be Native and Christian, and then there's a lot of being able to done, hey, like being able to settle that question, or what does it mean to be contextualized in our practices? And I think one of the questions is now, at least from on my heart, is how can we contextualize our theology and our doctrine, and what does that look like to shift away from just what was given? And it's always interesting when like DeLorean and some of those ones that walk before us, um, they tackle different questions. But I was just curious if that was one of the ones that he ever went to over his life. But
Go ahead, Upataka.
I just want to thank you, Kimberlee, for what you've had to share tonight. It's very you've given us a lot to think about, a lot of wonderful things about the story of Vine Deloria Jr., his family, the Delorias. I don't know. I had all these thoughts while you were talking. And so I wanted to maybe touch a little bit on Sasquatch, right? Sasquatch's vision. It was taught you said something about like the red road, or like maybe choosing the red road, or choosing which road you want to follow or something. I was just wondering, could you speak maybe a little bit more, or speak a little bit about the red road and what the other road was? Because I somehow missed that, but it seemed very it seemed to be one of the things that really popped out when you were speaking. But yeah, I just wanted to hear maybe a little bit more about that from like what you've learned, what you researched, what your knowledge is, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, this was an amazing talk tonight. But yeah, so yes, a little bit more on the red road.
All right. So Sasway had his vision when he was probably around 12 years old. And he did not convert to Christianity until 1873, the last 3 years of his life. But his vision is related in the book Singing for a Spirit, which is written by Vine Deloria Jr. But it's also Vine Deloria Jr.'s response to Sarah Bolden, who wrote about the Dakota people, but she really didn't know what she was saying when she wrote about a lot of the ways of knowing and being of the Dakota. So he felt like it was his responsibility to make some corrections where she was just blatantly wrong and have no idea. So, but that's the only place that I can find as much of his vision as is in that book. There's little pieces here and there in other places that people have quoted, but he was age 15 or 16. But it says he was in a beautiful valley in the middle of which was a bare road, made apparently by a party of Indians whose travois had scraped away the grass, leaving dirt track. And he was walking along. He came to a large black teepee sitting in the middle of the road and so situated that he could not go around it. Recognizing that his encounter was something holy, he went into the teepee. Inside, the road continued for a short distance and forked, one branch going to the left, the other to the right. The two tracks continued. Sasway saw there was no back to the teepee, and the landscape seemed to stretch out forever. But at the same time, there really was a back to the teepee. This made the teepee impossibly large and indicated to him that, having once entered, he could not go back. So right there tells you the seriousness of his decision that he was going to make. On the left-hand road facing him were 4 human skeletons lined up in a row, extending a good distance down the track. The skeletons were seated with their legs bent, their upper torsos leaning forward, and their forearms resting on their knees. They were looking down the road. On their arms and leg bones were tied large bundles of grass. As he looked from the skeletons to the road ahead, he saw the road appeared chalky white. Taken together with the skeletons, it looked rather ordinary and unexciting. The road on the right was and somber. At the end of the white, left-handed road sat a large black hawk who moved his head almost continually side to side and looked intently at Sasway. On the right-hand fork at the end of the road and opposite the black hawk was a white owl. He stared straight ahead, also looking intently at Sasway. And so then there's the point where Sasway's looking down both of the roads. He chooses the red road, and then the hawk says, "You better come over here because he's going to need all the help he can get." The red road was fraught with danger but filled with life. The 4 purification tents meant that Sasway would kill 4 men of his own tribe and have to undergo 4 purification rituals. He would have great power as a medicine man, the thunders would be his close friends, and many birds and animals would help him. He was given a special stone to make it rain. So there's more to his vision than that, and I do some explanations. We don't know if that is the totality of his whole vision, because of course, in the indigenous ways of knowing and being, you just don't tell everything there is to tell, because there are some things that not everybody else is meant to know. It's just between you and the creator. So there's that aspect of it. But there had been, and I trace like the mission schools and the boarding schools and the churches that were serving the Dakota and the Lakota people to an extent in this study, and it gets to be quite involved. But somewhere along the line, Christianity became attractive to Sasway as a holy man, and he requested that a missionary come over to them or some kind of church be built. And that was even before he converted to Christianity, because he saw Christianity, one of the attractions was that it was a power structure. And that's one of the things that I discussed. It was that way for a lot of indigenous people. They saw it as a power structure, some a political structure, some as a social society to belong to. So there's all those things going on too. But read Singing for a Spirit, and you'll be able to read as much about it as you can. And it's interesting. So I hope it helps.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
thank you very much. And like I said, I'd like you to put a bookmark there, and if you wouldn't mind, give you a month or two and come back on and share a little bit more. Another good segment that can enlighten us some. And everyone, I just want to share with you that this is a level of academia that Nate's is all about. And she's a very fine example of someone doing her dissertation, assisting people in writing, and also teaching. So think of that as we get into November when we're going to have Sherry Russell on, talk about Nate's and the academic world that it is. Because I want you all to sign up to get your master's degrees there. And I need some folks to follow behind me here so that I can keep this ball rolling and rolling and rolling. So, and then some of you to do your PhD as well. So, I'm not I'm pushing you that way. So, it's called encouragement. So, thank you, Kimberlee. We want to turn it over to our closing song, and then Petadaka will close us out with a send-off.
Turned out to be a Jonathan Miracle night.
Yeah, it's a miracle night, yeah.
Yes, sir. Got our own choir. Yes, sir. Got our own choir. Yes, sir. Got our own choir. Way high, oh.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Kimberlee Medicine Horn, Jackson. Sorry, I'm so nervous right now. I feel like I'm actually getting like to speak to someone that I look up to, you know. So I'm very nervous. I'm always kind of nervous when I get to speak with an elder. But yes, I'm always excited to hear what you have to share, hey, like many of us. But so yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the send off blessing, but I'm kind of nervous to try it. I've never sang this song before, but I felt it might be appropriate after learning about a very resilient story of someone who was able to basically the family. I mean the family, not just the one person, but the Deloria family and their story of resilience and adapting to changing times, and also being true to yourself. So like yeah, I really appreciate what I've learned so far, and I'm excited to see you again soon. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to try to sing the song. So sounds all right. Okay. Tonka Shilaya, Pia Maya, Pila Maya, I say Pila Maya, everything. Pila Maya, Pila Maya, Kashila, Pila Maya, Pila Maya, Pila Maya, Hey, Maya, Pila Maya, Pila Maya, Hey. All right. Thank you. Aho. Hey. Amen. Amen. Hey. But yes, thank you. I'm gonna pass this back over to Uncle Casey now. Hey.
And
All right. Thank
thank you, little
thank you.
sister. That was beautiful. That was so beautiful, honey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Creator. If I was understanding it, Tonka, Tonka Palamia, thank you. Tankashita, grandfather, Wakan Tonka, Tankashita, grandfather. So I want you to do that song again, little sister, because I want you to teach that to us. I think that would be a great song for us to learn to do.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, everyone, for being on. I know it's a long night, but I think it was very well worth it to hear Kimberlee share her research with us. Have a good evening, everyone, and come on back next week. We'll be having Terry Wildman, and be ready to start learning the Lord's Prayer and then the 23rd Psalm. So, everyone, have a good night. Love you all. And thank you for all those just first timers that came on. It was wonderful that you shared with us. And next time we'll be hearing your questions as we go forward here. Take care now. Have a good night. Ken.